All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Armchair Armdrager podcast. This is episode number 15, and as always, I'm your host, Ben Hersick. A lot happened this past week in professional wrestling. We had Takeover Toronto, we had SummerSlam, we had the G1 Climax finals, we had OK Raw and a pretty decent SmackDown, where the main focus to me was about the King of the Ring tournament coming back for starting next week. And I believe it was revealed. It's a rumor going around that the semifinals are advertised for the Madison Square Garden shows that WWE is doing a week or two before Clash of Champions. So we'll talk about that, a little bit about the G1 final, but mostly this is going to be Takeover Toronto and not Takeover SummerSlam, Takeover Toronto and SummerSlam. But first, as always, the whole Twitter, follow us and everything that I always do. You can follow myself on Twitter at ChurroSolider. You can follow this podcast at Podcast Armchair. You can follow All Things Combat, which is a website that I write for where we cover boxing, MMA, and professional wrestling over at Things Combat. Right now, I just finished my breaking down and predicting the 2019 King of the Ring. So I have my winner officially picked. I'm not going to say who it is, but it's a pretty obvious choice. I think most people are picking this person to win the King of the Ring. You can follow us at Things Combat. I also have a breaking down predicting of the Super J Cup from New Japan and a breaking down predicting of the Battle of Los Angeles tournament that Pro Wrestling Guerrilla puts on every year. Those will be coming up relatively soon. What else? All right, I am the sports editor over at the Cauldron at Cleveland State. And if you want to see all the news happening with Cleveland State, you can follow us at CSU Cauldron on Twitter. Now, what else am I forgetting? Let's see. I believe that's about it. So let's start with the show that happened on Monday, which would have been the most. Was it Monday? It was Monday. It was like Monday morning for the U.S. It was the finals of the G1 Climax. I got one of the finalists right. I got Ibushi right. I was torn between White and Naito. I took Naito, but White was number 2 on my breaking down predicting of the G1. So my top 3 were all alive going into the final night of block action. So I did pretty good there. The thing was with that final, you kind of felt like it was going to be Ibushi because we're gonna get Ibushi versus Okada with a 60-minute time limit. That's probably gonna be a 40 to 45-minute match. I don't see Ibushi losing the briefcase to anybody. The only people who have claims to it are Kenta and Evil. And that's 2 shows. There's still Power Struggle, there's King of Pro Wrestling, there's Royal Quest. And I think there's another one that I'm forgetting. I was going to say something at Budokan, but it's not Budokan. But anyway, there's at least 2 challengers for Ibushi's briefcase. Okada is being challenged by Minoru Suzuki at Royal Quest, which leads me to believe he'll be challenged by Sonata at King of Pro Wrestling, and they'll figure something out at Power Struggle. So you look at it, it's kind of clear that's going to be the main event. Jay White is probably going to end up challenging Naito for the Intercontinental title. And the thing is, Wrestle Kingdom is 2 days this year. So how exactly are you going to divide that up? I don't remember what day Liger said his last match would be, but I think it should be the first night, and he should face Suzuki in the main event. A very nice send-off, a very nice way to send off one of your all-time great wrestlers, and he's wanted Suzuki for a long time, so it would be a perfect match. You still have... So if on the second day you have all of New Japan stuff, the first day you could have like CMLL, Rev Pro, and Ring of Honor stuff. You could have like those championships be defended, and maybe people can find a new favorite. For example, that's kind of how I found Matt Taven. I was just watching a Ring of Honor show. I was watching the MSG show. I had heard of Taven, but I'd never seen him in the ring, and I gravitated towards him. I'm like, I like this guy. This guy is cool. So I look at it as an opportunity to showcase your working relationships with everybody and have them get that big moment. And while, yes, the G1 Climax final was a great match, and I'll get to that in a minute, like the match itself, I do want to talk about the one moment that I have been running through my head the whole time. And that was the six-man tag between Bullet Club, represented by the Guerrillas of Destiny, Tamatonga and Tangaloa, as well as Bad Luck Fale, against the team of Tomohiro Ishii, Yoshihashi, and Kenta. This is the match where Kenta turned and joined Bullet Club. That was a bit of a surprise to me. I didn't really see it coming. But what I didn't see coming even more was Katsuyori Shibata running out to beat up Bullet Club and then get beat up himself. So the reason this is big, I'm going to read this straight from the Wikipedia article. For a little background first, Shibata won. He's a historic wrestler in New Japan, in Japanese wrestling in general. If you say Shibata, somebody will tell you their favorite Shibata moment, probably. In 2017, he won the New Japan Cup, which meant he got to challenge either the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, the Intercontinental Champion, or the Never Openweight Champion. Typically, they choose the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. At the time, it just happened to be, like it's been for almost the past 4 years, Kazuchika Okada. So, Shibata challenged Okada at Sakura Genesis in 2017. He failed to defeat Okada. Following the match, Shibata collapsed backstage and was rushed to a hospital, where it was discovered that he had a subdural hematoma, which required immediate surgery. I remember reading that he had roughly an 18% chance to live through the surgery. Thankfully, he did. The reason for this injury was because of him using the headbutt. Now, in New Japan, you hear the strikes a lot more. You don't. It's like in WWE, it's a little toned down. In New Japan, you can hear them chopping the hell out of each other. You can hear them slapping the hell out of each other. You can hear a lot better. I don't know if it's the acoustics in the arenas or if it's just that they're actually trying to destroy each other. I tend to believe it's the latter. So that's the reason why Shibata suffered this injury, because he was legitimately headbutting people. And while most people know that's not a good idea, and I'm pretty sure Shibata knew that too, it worked in his arsenal and it was effective. And if it works, if something's not broken, you don't fix it. But Shibata suffered the injury. It was reported by Dave Meltzer, so it was believed that Shibata would never be cleared to wrestle again. And it was later reported that he probably was never going to wrestle again. But New Japan wanted to sign him to keep him around, so that way he could train the younger guys, the young lions. And Shibata, as they've stated multiple times throughout the G1, is the leader of he's the head coach of the New Japan Dojo in Los Angeles. Him getting physical was a surprise, and it's led people to speculate he's going to return. If that's the case, and he chooses to return, have the doctors medically clear him. I can see somebody trying to rush back to something they love and not being medically cleared and suffering lifetime injury. Shibata suffered paralysis on the right side of his body due to this injury. So I would rather him be completely medically cleared and it's okay for him to take all these bumps and everything. And if that's the case, and he is cleared before a certain time period, I'm more curious as to what the direction could be for him. While yes, he's going to want Kenta, there's still another big tournament in New Japan this year that heavyweights compete in. There's still the Super J Cup and the Junior World Tag League, but those are for the junior heavyweights. I'm talking about the World Tag League for the heavyweights. Are we going to see Shibata and Goto together? If Goto does get medically cleared, I think that's the case. And then you have the whole question, what's Goto's role with... Is Goto's role with Chaos going to change? How does Shibata fit into Chaos, possibly? Because I think right now, without Shibata, Chaos is in a perfectly fine state. I'm not saying that no matter what, if Shibata is medically cleared, he's going to join Chaos. I'm pretty sure if he's medically cleared and he joins Hiroki Goto, he would join Hiroki Goto in the Tag League. Now, my thing is... In Chaos right now, you have the Never Openweight Champion in Tomohiro Ishii. You have the IWGP Heavyweight Champion in Kazuchika Okada. You have the Junior Heavyweight Champion in Will Ospreay. You have former multi-time Junior Tag Champs in Sho and Yo of Roppongi 3K. You have Rocky Romero, who's one of the best Junior Heavyweights as far as a tag team wrestler goes in history. You have Hiroki Goto, you have Yoshihashi, and you have Mikey Nichols. Now, right now, Goto is kind of the guy who's like the in-between guy. He can be the mid-card guy right now, which would be fine. And that leaves Yoshihashi and Mikey Nichols to be the tag team. But if Shibata comes in and him and Goto become the tag team, where does that leave Yoshihashi? Where does that leave Mikey Nichols? It's a whole big question that I think a lot of us are still trying to figure out. It's all a big if. There's no proof that Shibata is medically cleared. Once there's proof, then the speculation will get bigger. But let's get to the final of the G1 Climax. I'm not saying it was the best match of the tournament, but it was a really damn good match. You had a lot of great storytelling by Jay White with Bullet Club. You had a lot of great selling from Kota Ibushi with his ankle and I think eventually his knee, if I remember right. But it wasn't his Kamigoye knee, which was what Jay White probably should have been focusing on. So you look at the tournament, you look at how this kind of played out. When we got, after Jay White won the B block and attacked Kota Ibushi, it seemed pretty clear that Ibushi was going to win the tournament to me. Also, I don't think they want to piss their fans off that much and have Jay White win. What I want to see Jay White become a big deal. It's weird to say this because people were so pissed when he beat Naito. I think it was a good call. It was something we weren't expecting, really, because a lot of people love Naito. I'm one of the people that love Naito. But it went back to that face heel dynamic that you didn't get a lot of the time recently in New Japan for the G1 final. With this match, you saw that face heel dynamic a little more, which was nice to see. And you saw Jay White's clearly the bad guy, Kota Ibushi's really the good guy. Where last year you have Tanahashi and Ibushi. Did I say Kota Ibushi? I think it's Kota Ibushi. You have Jay White and Kota Ibushi. Last year you had Tanahashi and Kota Ibushi, where one was the ace of the universe, one is somebody everybody loves. So both guys are going to get cheered regardless. This year you have one guy that's going to get cheered, one guy that's going to get booed. Works a lot better in wrestling terms. To me, the match focused really on how Jay White ran off 6 straight. Ibushi ran off, I believe, 7 straight. And as we know, in numbers, 7's bigger than 6. So Ibushi was going to win. But if you look at it from a pure wrestling standpoint, you would rather have your big match at your big show be something everybody wants to see. We saw Jay White versus Kazuchika Okada already this year. And knowing New Japan, they like to let things rest. We haven't seen Ibushi versus Okada, I think they said since 2015. This was the first time in 4 years that those two had ever locked up in the A block final. We might not see Jay White get another chance at the IWGP Heavyweight Championship or Kazuchika Okada for quite a long time. And to be fair, that's kind of why I do think they had Naito lose to Jay White, because we just saw Ibushi Naito. What will be the point of us seeing it again when we've seen it 2 times in the past 4 months. It was at the MSG show, and it was at Dominion. So we've seen it twice recently. What was the point of us seeing it again? I kind of get it from that standpoint, and it feels weird to be like a guy who's not upset about Jay White. I like Jay White. I think Jay White's a great wrestler. He's going to be a big deal in the future. But everybody else was so pissed. And I even saw somebody say, what if Shinsuke Nakamura saw New Japan's G1 Climax final, and what if he texted what if he texted Tetsuya Naito and said, it's time? And I don't think Naito is going to leave right away, if he does leave at all, to be fair. I believe more that Sonata would leave first. And I know some people said he's good in WWE, some people said it wouldn't be a good fit. Some people said he should go to AEW more. I don't think he should go to AEW at all, to be personally honest, simply because I do not trust the Bucks and Omega, the Bucks and Cody yet. I trust Omega because I don't think Omega's playing as big of a role backstage as Cody and the Bucks are. I'm not saying I'm not excited for AEW. I am excited. I'm just like, I don't trust them yet because we've seen, 3 shows? We've seen 3 shows from them so far. And their weekly TV right now doesn't start until October. So we can't say we fully trust these guys yet. I want to wait maybe a couple months after the show debuts and say, okay, yeah, we can trust these guys as bookers. Now, I know WWE's track record is not nearly as good as booking recently, but I trust Triple H in NXT a whole hell of a lot more than I trust Vince McMahon on the main roster. So it's a whole big wait and see. I do think Sonata does get a championship match relatively soon. I'm assuming it's going to be King of Pro Wrestling. We're going to see Okada Sonata for the title, which will be very interesting. And it's obviously going to be Okada because they're not going to have Ibushi not face Okada. Ibushi Sonata would be great, but I believe we're going to see Okada Ibushi first. And I just don't. It's so weird. Like I'm saying all this stuff, but I like to wait till I hear it from the horse's mouth. If Sonata says he's leaving, then we know he's leaving. If Sonata says he's staying, then we know he's staying. So it's all a wait and see moment right now. But like I said, I'm expecting to see Ibushi Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. I'm expecting to see Naito versus Jay White for the Intercontinental title. If Shibata does get medically cleared, and that is a huge if, I expect we see Shibata versus Kenta, which kind of works very well too, because that means Bullet Club would be in two big matches. LIJ would have a big match. Chaos has a big match. The only stable, not really with a big match, is Taguchi Japan. And that all depends on Moxley's situation, like what Moxley's plan is. I heard he challenged Juice to a no DQ match. It's not going to be at Royal Quest because that's the same day as All Out, and Moxley's going to be facing Omega in Chicago. It'll probably be King of Pro Wrestling, off the top of my head. But it's all a wait and see, so we'll see all about that. Let's get into TakeOver Toronto. Again, TakeOver delivered, as always. It felt like it was going to be a one-match show because this was the Street Profits' second TakeOver. This was Mia Yim's first. This was Io Shirai's second. Candice LeRae's first. Pete Dunne's first TakeOver as a member of the NXT North American roster. Apparently, because that's where he's listed as on Wikipedia, at least. First TakeOver for Mia Yim. So we had a lot of firsts and seconds and all that stuff worked in there. But again, it was a good show. It wasn't the worst TakeOver. Of the year, this is probably the worst. But that's simply because of the fact that TakeOver, wherever the hell the Royal Rumble was, TakeOver New York and TakeOver 25 were so good. It seems like right now TakeOver Toronto kind of took a back seat. They just announced some new guys and girls that signed with the Performance Center, so we're probably going to see Austin Theory come up, be available sometime soon on NXT TV. We'll see Santana Garrett soon. Rumor is we might see King Cuerno from Lucha Underground. I'm not even going to try and say his other name. It's like El Hilo something. I would probably butcher it, so that's why I'm not going to say it. But like those three were the big ones. There were some other smaller ones. One Chilean women's wrestler who was like a two-time world champion, or two-time champion, excuse me. There was a judo world champion and a jiu-jitsu world champion and a judo medalist that signed, along with a couple others that were former athletes. One's a U.S. vet, so somebody said he might join Forgotten Sons, which I wouldn't mind seeing. I like stables, and that would make it a stable, at least to me. So the Performance Center recruits are going to be interesting to see because they're going to be having their first takeovers at some point. But TakeOver Toronto, start with the main show. Starting off the main show, you had Street Profits versus Red Dragon, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish for the NXT Tag Team titles. I was of the mind that it's not going to be an undisputed night. They can have the claim that they're going to win all the gold, all they want. It's not going to happen because Street Profits just won the titles. And the one thing NXT is not known for is transitional champions. While, yes, they had the speed-up plans for Gargano versus Cole, because the TakeOver New York was going to be the final chapter of Gargano Ciampa before Ciampa got injured. That was going to be it. Ciampa would have gotten the call-up. Gargano would have been in NXT, and we would have maybe seen a match or two in between before Cole getting a title shot. NXT never really has transitional champions. The most recent one, besides Gargano, oh God, who could that have even been? It would have been Gargano with the North American title. He beat Ricochet for it, and then he lost the Velveteen Dream on NXT TV. So they're not really known for it, so I didn't expect the Street Profits to lose. This was the one I went in with the most confidence. partly because of the fact that I trust the Street Profits, and they've been on Raw. What would be the point of them losing their titles if they're going to keep showing up on Raw? And they're not wrestling. They're just backstage doing fun things. And I've enjoyed it, and I've loved it. I want to see it more. Give me more of Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins with Ric Flair. Please. It was a bit slow of a match at first. Picked up a little bit later. It was just slow from the point that it wasn't like people flying around like you usually see. In a lot of takeover matches, you see guys and girls go guns blazing out of the gates. This was a nice slow change of pace from that, where everything's a little bit slower, a little more methodical, for lack of a better term, to steal a term from Randy Orton's matches. And you saw more of what the Street Profits can do in a technical matchup, because we've seen them just having fun and being enjoyable guys. Now we've seen them in an actual wrestling match, and they can go with two of the best pure wrestlers on the NXT roster, which is really nice. Like I said earlier, the Street Profits are fantastic. Montez Ford, he bounced off the ropes. He took one step in the middle of the ring and was able to do a tope con hilo, I believe it was. Completely clearing the top rope. That is unusual. That man's jumping ability is amazing. He's going to be a huge star when they get the official call up. I'm very excited for the Street Profits' future. I want them to be on Raw because I think Heyman could do some stuff really well with them. I don't know how well Bischoff was with tag teams in WCW. I was born during the WWE versus WCW. I was, I think, 4 when WCW went under. So I wouldn't have understood anything. But also this begs the question, who's next for the Street Profits? I don't think they're going to go Breezango right away. Street Profits just beat Red Dragon, so Undisputed Era might take a bit of a backseat. Forgotten Sons just lost to Breezango on NXT TV. The first one in my head was Miles Jordan, former ACH, won the breakout tournament over Cameron Grimes, the former Trevor Lee. So, and now Jordan Miles. I was thinking Miles Morales. Now Jordan Miles has a guaranteed title shot. What if we see him say he wants a tag team title shot, and he brings out Isaiah Swerve Scott, a.k.a. Shane Swerve Strickland? And imagine Scott and Miles versus Street Profits. I'm trying to get used to their new names still. Like, some of them are easy, like Cameron Grimes versus Trevor Lee. That's an easy one to remember. But Isaiah Scott to Shane Strickland and Miles Jordan to ACH. Jordan Miles to ACH. God. Jordan Miles to ACH is a little bit harder to remember. That would be an interesting idea, I think. And we can see that play out. And we have a long road to go to War Games. So I'm very curious to see what our plans are here. We have about 3 months, I believe. So not this taping or the next taping, but the taping after, we're going to know all the official matches for War Games. Excuse me. Io Shirai versus Candice LeRae was really good, I thought. Very action-packed. Showed just how good Candice LeRae can be and how Io Shirai, the new Io Shirai, is going to be really good. If I remember right, there was a point where LeRae hit in the Mae Young Classic. Candice LeRae was in the first one. It was called Miss LeRae's Wild Ride, which was the neck breaker off the second rope, and Io Shirai kicked out of that. And then Io hit her beautiful moonsault, and LeRae kicked out of that. So now it's like, okay, what's their new finisher is going to be? Because people are kicking out of their old ones. It's a lot like New Japan, for example. People were kicking out of Goto's old finisher, so then he made the GTR. People were kicking out of Sonata's TKO, which is just pretty much an attitude adjustment moved into a cutter. And he started using Skull End. So it's kind of like that. Like, you're evolving your finisher as you mature as a wrestler. I'm more curious as to what LeRae's would be, because it seems like Io Shirai is going to be the Koji Clutch, which will be very interesting, because you don't usually see a leg submission. Like, she had you see, like, I'm not saying like a submission finisher on the legs. Like, imagine a figure 4 on the head where your arms get twisted a little bit. That's kind of what the Koji Clutch kind of was. Kind of is. So, I'm more curious as to how this will translate also to TV now. Candice LeRae finally had her first takeover match. She's now more than just Johnny Gargano's wife that comes out after his matches. So maybe we start to see her wrestle more and more at tapings. Io Shirai's new character looked great. What's her next direction? Because of Baszler winning later in the night. Sorry for spoilers for an event that happened last week. What's the next direction for Io Shirai? Because she seems like the perfect next person to be the NXT Women's Champion. But Baszler is still a heel. So how do you get to that point? I'm also kind of curious as to, now that there's still that fifth match spot, part of me feels like that's going to go to Killian Dane and Matt Riddle at War Games. Part of me feels like we'll get that at this week's NXT tapings. So how do we get to the point where we figure out what Io Shirai and Candice LeRae have next? It's going to be interesting because they both looked really good. I expect Hunter to give them a lot of more opportunities, which I'm very excited to see. Maybe we see Candice LeRae form a friendship with... The first person that came to my mind was Lacey Lane. Maybe we see Candice LeRae and Lacey Lane together, and they go after the women's tag team titles. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross don't really have anything going on the main roster, outside of maybe Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose. This is where NXT can kind of play an integral part in that, and we'll see. We could see Alexa Bliss finally get a takeover match. I don't think she ever had one when she was in NXT, which would be very nice to see. I think I'm more optimistic for Candice LeRae's character because I feel like we know the direction Io Shirai is going to go. Like I said last week, I don't think she's long for NXT, but it's going to take something special to be the person to beat her. I'm more excited to see what LeRae's future holds right now. Especially when she took that beating, or she was getting beat down for most of that match, and her comeback was really good. And it got the fans invested in it. Then we had the triple threat for the North American title. I was one of the very few people that picked Velveteen Dream. My logical thinking was, somebody's here to eat the pinfall. To me, ever since he's come to NXT, that's been Roderick Strong. And I was right. Roderick Strong... No, Pete Dunne took the pinfall. So Dunne was just in the match for the pinfall. Maybe we see Dream versus Strong at War Games, possibly. Part of me feels like this match was supposed to be, or one of Dream's past two TakeOver matches, was supposed to be him versus Dominic Djokovic. But Djokovic, I believe it was his ACL? He injured something. And he's been out since. And it's surprising because the guy is like 6'7". He's only 218 pounds. So I was surprised he didn't get hurt earlier in his career. I fully expect him to be a big deal in NXT. But I think they want him to get a little bit bigger, like muscle-wise. There's also the looming factor of Kushida's still there. Damian Priest is there. Like I said, Dominic Djokovic, Keith Lee. That's four guys right there that could feasibly defeat the Velveteen Dream. So you also do have the fact that Jordan Miles does have that guaranteed title shot. And the North American title's looking pretty nice right now. Fantastic triple threat. Showed the strengths of all three. You had Dream showing his, what's the word? Optimism. Or opportunistic timing. With his Purple Rainmaker after Strong hit the end of Heartache on Pete Dunne. You had Pete Dunne and his joint manipulation and just brutal nature. You had Roderick Strong showing his striking prowess and his backbreakers, his wide arsenal of backbreakers. I have never seen somebody hit so many backbreakers in a match. All three of these guys are going to be future stars in WWE. They can carry the company to be the next, and they could easily be the next faces of the company. Pete Dunne is going to be the face of the company for the UK division. At least, whenever they go to the UK, Pete Dunne's going to have big-time matches. And I do think... My big question after this match was, who stops Velveteen Dream? That's my big question for a lot of this. Who's next? What's next? I do think that Dream is going to lose the title at some point relatively soon. Possibly. Like I said, there's Keith Lee, Damian Priest, Dominic Djokovic when he's healthy, Kushida. There's probably somebody else I'm forgetting. Austin Theory now, too. Jordan Miles. There's so many potential matches for Dream that I would love to see. And I'm happy he's still the champion. Partly because this was one of the predictions I'm happy I got right. And I look at it, where does Pete Dunne go from this now? Where does Roderick Strong go? Roderick Strong can't go for the world title picture because Adam Cole is still champion. Pete Dunne is Pete Dunne, but he just lost a match on Takeover, a title match on a Takeover. So what's his direction going to be now? It's got all these questions that we're probably going to get answered tonight at the TV tapings. I'll be reading spoilers because I just don't have the time to watch NXT right now. I have to find it, hopefully somewhat soon. Depends on what my work schedule is with the school semester starting up here in a couple weeks. So there is that. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for Velveteen Dream. How many more elaborate things can he do? That's one of the fun things I've found with Velveteen Dream matches. He just gets so elaborate and creative, and you always want to see what he does next. So Mia Yim versus Shayna Baszler, it was in a tough spot because they had to follow that great triple threat, and they were before the main event. So it kind of felt like they were in a pickle situation. So it always kind of felt like it was going to be short too, simply because that main event was going to go long. 2 out of 3 falls, customized match essentially. Essentially, it was 3 stages of hell. So you had the story here too was also weird. They both went after each other's arms, so there weren't going to be a lot of like big high spot points. So you could tell it wasn't going to be like super crazy. And I think that was a safe way to go. Baszler winning is a weird call to me, simply because who's left? Who is legitimately left for Shayna Baszler to face? And I was scrolling through Twitter, watching what people were saying. The only name that I could see that, and she's teased at returning a little bit too on Twitter, Dakota Kai. But then they got me thinking possibly Tegan Nox. But I feel like Tegan Nox is going to show up at TakeOver Cardiff here in a couple weeks, which I'm perfectly fine with. I would love to see Tegan Nox go after Toni Storm. Hell, then Toni Storm could go to the main NXT and she could take the title from Shayna Baszler for all I know. So it was kind of weird because this was Yim's real first big match, and people were all doubting her. Like, she's not a good wrestler. She's a fantastic wrestler. Is she one of the best, if the best women's wrestler? Right now, no. There's still a lot of in between there, but I do think Yim's going to be a big player in the future, simply because of the fact that she is really good. Baszler is also fantastic. And now with the return of Sasha Banks, that answers my question as to who's really left for Becky. Sasha Banks. But when Sasha wasn't there, I felt like Shayna Baszler would have been a good fill-in. But now Baszler is going to be like, oh, I'm the best, nobody can beat me. Dakota Kai is the only legitimate one that has a claim to wanting to beat Baszler, because Baszler took her out, essentially. She took out her arm, and then Dakota Kai was kind of like, for lack of a better term, fumbling around on NXT, doing matches here, matches there. Went to NXT UK for a little bit. She was in the Women's Championship tournament. I believe she was a semi-finalist against... Was she a semi-finalist? Or was she a first-round exit? She was in the tournament. I know that much. So, I feel like that's the direction they're going to go for Baszler, which I'm perfectly fine with. I would like to see it. But then the question becomes, when is Baszler getting the call-up? Because Baszler is ready. There are so many people at NXT that are ready, but Baszler, of the women's division, the only one ready right now is Shayna Baszler. So we'll see how that goes and what the future holds for her. But then we got to the main event, where it was Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole. 2 out of 3 falls, customized match. The first two falls were relatively quick. I say relatively, I think the first fall was like 18 minutes. Where Gargano just got disqualified. And that played into his strategy perfectly for the second fall, where he just beat the absolute living hell out of Adam Cole. And the third match was high spots galore. You saw so many big spots. You saw the fall off the top of the cage from... And I even questioned on Twitter, like, what is that thing on the far corner? Somebody said glass table. Somebody said a barbed wire table. It was just a platform. I was mad they didn't use thumbtacks. When I saw that bag, I thought it was thumbtacks. I think a lot of other people did too. Because when you see Gargano open it up, and it's like tools. Like, I think there was a wrench in there. There's a screwdriver. Everyone was like, Oh, you want thumbtacks? And when they got to the platform, you could tell somebody was going to go through the table. If not both of them, they both went through one. They missed the first table because they set up two. They missed the first one. They got through the second one, and it was a very smart pin. It made both guys look really good going out of the show. And I fully expect to see the aftermath on the NXT tapings tonight. I'm curious as to what's next for Adam Cole. Where does he go? Who does he face? The easy answer, Tommaso Ciampa. The more long-winded answer would be Matt Riddle. There's also a part of me that feels like Kushida could come into play somehow, some way. But we have to get to that point first. We have to see... Because we're not going to see who's the number one contender tonight, I don't think. We're going to see that the next set of tapings. I don't know when that is, but we're going to see that the next set. So, we're going to play the booking game. Who's it going to be? I feel like the answer it's probably going to be is Tommaso Ciampa. And after Ciampa loses at War Games, he's getting the call up. And I think Undisputed Era will be on the main roster after WrestleMania next year, which I am so excited to see. Because if booked properly, if Vince McMahon does not screw up the Undisputed Era, I think they can be big-time players on the main roster. I was going to say guaranteed Hall of Famers. They could still be guaranteed Hall of Famers. But if they're booked like crap, then it throws that into question. Because all four wrestlers are fantastic. And we know Vince McMahon hates staples. And I don't think it's going to be that situation. Like, New Day works for a reason. You can push so much merch. Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and Roderick Strong aren't the most, for lack of a better term, they're not the most barbaric looking guys. Like, you're not going to see the Viking Raiders selling Skittles anytime soon. You can see Undisputed Era pushing like a protein drink, like they have the deal with Bodycore or whatever it's called. You could see Undisputed Era pushing products and being a good representation for the company. So I'm expecting to see that. I'm excited to see it because I'd like to see the future of Undisputed Era on the main roster. But we have maybe a little bit over half a year, 6 months roughly to that point. So we'll see. Let's take over. Like I said, it was a good show. It wasn't the best takeover this year. Of the takeovers this year, it's probably the worst, but overall it's like right in the middle of the road. Great main event. You had a pretty decent undercard with one really exceptional match. To me, it was the triple threat. But to others, you could point to Io Shirai, Candice LeRae. For even others, you could point to Street Profits versus Undisputed Era. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes down in history. But let's get to SummerSlam. I'm already 38 minutes into this thing. I've talked about 2 of the 3 topics I've had. And SummerSlam was pretty goddamn long. So, let's start with Drew Gulak versus Oney Lorcan, the first match in the kickoff show. Good little back and forth, nice heel tags by Gulak. What people didn't realize was after he pulled the apron up and the referee was like distracted by it, he punched Lorcan in the throat. Typically in WWE and in pro wrestling, you see them say you need to have an open hand strike. That was a legit punch to the throat. And Lorcan took it head on, which I am very surprised to see. It's something you don't usually see from WWE. I can't tell you the last time we've seen a throat punch or anything like that. So, the question is, as always, I have after a champion wins, and it's not an obvious where do we go now. It's who's next for Drew Gulak. It kind of seems like I was reading the stuff from 205 Live. It kind of seems like we're not done with the whole Drew Gulak, Oney Lorcan thing, which I'm perfectly fine with. But as to like who could be the next challenger, like I always say, Humberto Carrillo. I'm curious also, this pertains to 205 Live. What's next for Mike Kanellis and Maria Kanellis? Yes, Maria's going to go away for a little while. And maybe Mike will say, look, now that Maria's not here, I want to go by a different name. I want to go by my name. I want to go by Mike Bennett. And maybe we see Bennett rise to the top. And maybe just after Maria has their second child, their legitimate second child. Because at first I was like, wait, is this just like a gimmick thing? But no, it turns out she actually is pregnant. But if that's the route they go, then could we see a kind of weird thing where like Maria wants him to be Kanellis, but he wasn't successful as a Kanellis, and he's being successful as a Bennett, so they keep Bennett. I don't know. It's a whole weird scenario I thought up one night. And I'm curious as to how 205 Live is going to progress, because there's a lot of talent there, obviously. But where do they go? What do they do? What's the next step? That's always my question with professional wrestling. I hate that that's my questioning, but that's what it is. That's how my brain works. What's next? Where do we go? Who could it be? And speaking of 205 Live, the next match on the pre-show was maybe the best cruiserweight champion in history? Question mark. With Buddy Murphy taking on Apollo Crews. It was good until the finish, but I didn't mind that it was a disqualification. Crews is somebody I've gone on a lot about and how talented he is. He looked great in the match. Buddy Murphy looked good. Rowan interfering was a nice little bit because it progressed the story and it furthered the SmackDown and the whodunit story. Because it turns out, at least according to last week on SmackDown, and Daniel Bryan's word, it wasn't Bryan and it wasn't Rowan. So then who the hell was it? My head says Luke Harper. I'm sorry, my heart says Luke Harper. I want it to be Luke Harper. It's just going to be Daniel Bryan, which is a damn shame. So now that I look at it, it's good storyline progression, and it gave the pre-show meaning, which was nice. And please push Buddy to the damn moon, please. This time next year, if he's not Intercontinental Champion, at least, or U.S. Champion, depending on what title's on SmackDown, I don't know what I'll do. Probably still watch WWE because I enjoy it. That's probably what's going to happen. So, just please make Buddy Murphy matter. I enjoy Murphy so much. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross versus the Iconics. It was good, and it had some nice spots. I really like the one move. It wasn't a vertebreaker. It was close to Shingo Takagi's no Shigami. Peyton had, I think it was Peyton. Yeah, because this was right before the finish, and Peyton took the pin. Peyton had Bliss up in like a, what was the move Guerrero used to do? It was like Bliss took the bump on her chest almost. But like, Peyton hooked her legs. And just went straight backwards. That was a nice little spot. It's something you don't usually see a lot. I think that might be Peyton's finisher. Offhand. And Nikki Cross broke it up. This showed the potential of the Women's Tag Team Championships. They can be really good if they have a story. Just give them a story, and they will show you that they can do it. And there was Alexa Bliss throws a great right hand. And I'm very happy she's using Twisted Bliss as her finisher now. Again, I should say. Instead of that stupid, just normal, straight up DDT. It's like, this isn't the 1980s and Jake Roberts. Go back to doing Twisted Bliss. It's not even a hard move to do. It's a corkscrew moonsault. No, it's not even a corkscrew. It's a corkscrew front flip, essentially. I say it's not hard, but I've never done it. But it doesn't look like it's a very hard move to do, just in general. I'm very curious now, too. What do they do with the women's tag team titles? Like, the Iconics had a shot. Kabuki Warriors had a shot. The only legitimate tag team left on the main roster that hasn't had a shot recently, like a one-on-one shot, are Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. Who else? Nia Jax and Tamina are both hurt, I believe, still. I thought Tamina was cleared, but she's still listed as inactive. If Ember Moon can find a friend, Carmella is right there doing nothing but R-Truth stuff. Then she could have a title shot with the women's tag team titles, or even Alexa Bliss, because they're legitimate friends outside. It's also weird because Alexa Bliss is a face now. Like, I'm so used to her being a heel. It's weird to see her as a face. I say she's a face. She was a face on SummerSlam, but then they were back to being heels on Raw. So I'm curious as to what the direction is going to be for that. Simply because I want to know. I feel like it's obvious Alexa Bliss is going to turn on Nikki at some point, and then we're going to get Nikki Cross pushed to possibly the Raw Women's title? Maybe SmackDown? It all depends on when it happens and what show they're on and how close we are to the shakeup. Or draft, or whatever you want to call it. But again, it was a good little match. Just give them a story. Give people a story. Then we got to the main card, and I was surprised we started with the Raw Women's Championship match between, I almost said Alexa Bliss, between Becky Lynch and Natalya in a submission match. A great opener, good back and forth moments with submissions, and typically with submission matches, both wrestlers put on the other person's submission. I'm more curious as to why this was made a submission match. Like, we all know they both have submissions, and it didn't even really need to be a submission match. They're both going to go for the sharpshooter and disarm her, respectively. So why even have the stipulation? Now, there was a change made to the submission match rules, which I didn't mind it. I liked it a lot. You can't get disqualified. But the only issue is then, how do you get out of the submission? You could always just reverse it, but like, if you get to the ropes, you can't have to like drag yourself outside. There was one point where I think it was near the end. It was just before Becky's last disarmer that Natalya tapped out to. Becky crawled out of the ring while Natalya was still like back against the ropes, and you could see Becky like grabbing at the apron on the ground. I thought she was trying to grab a steel chair or something under the ring to hit Natalya with, because you can get disqualified, so might as well use some weapons. It looked a little weird, and like they got to work on that a little bit. But what I was more excited about was just how good they both looked. Natalya having that sharpshooter in on the turnbuckle, I believe it was the second rope with Becky Lynch. Very nice move. You don't see that a lot. You usually see the figure four on the bottom of the ring post. You don't usually see the sharpshooter involving the ring post. I have here written down who's left for Becky. Obviously, Sasha Banks. So that problem is solved. I'm more now curious as to where did they go with Natalya? Because Natalya looked great in that match. I wrote down this was her best match in quite a long time. It might be the best match she's had since Clash of Champions, I believe it was, against Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's title. Is that a couple years ago or was that last year? That had to have been a couple years ago. Yeah, because Naomi was still on SmackDown at that point. And Natalya was showing up on Raw last year. So yeah, like 2 years ago when they had the Charlotte versus Natalya story going. Again, like I said, very enjoyable opening match. And it really got you on the... to see like what SummerSlam is going to be. It's not going to be... It wasn't the best show ever. You know, it wasn't like, oh, we absolutely are going to show so much. But no, it was a solid show. It did its job, and it got people to talk about it. And it showed you who could really be like future stars or like faces of the company. Well, not really, but what's the words I'm looking for? This match set the tone for the show. It wasn't going to be balls to the wall the whole time, but it was going to be some pretty good matches. Speaking of what I'm fine with was Dolph Ziggler versus Goldberg. I'm very happy it was short. I didn't want a long Goldberg match. Dolph hitting 2 straight super kicks got me scared at the beginning. I'm like, they're not going to do it. They're not going to have Dolph Ziggler beat Goldberg. They didn't, which was good. Right call. But as you expected, it was, like I said, as expected, it was going to be short. And then I realized this Dolph Ziggler is just the Black Knight from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He even said it's just a flesh wound on Raw when he lost to Miz. I think it's really funny. And I'm like, why wasn't this a character sooner? Because I want to see it more and more now. It also, like, while I was waiting for the match to start, it kind of like made me ask the question, is Dolph Ziggler a Hall of Famer? Like, you look at it, he has the resume. He's a 2-time world champion. Technically, it's only a 1 time, but 2-time world champion. He is a multi-time Intercontinental and U.S. champion. He won the Raw Tag Team titles. He's a Triple Crown champion. And a Grand Slam champion. So, does he go into the Hall of Fame? Is my question. I think he gets a spot, but I also brought this up to a friend of mine. I think he's going to be like the Christian when it comes to the Hall of Fame because of the fact that Edge went in really, really early after he retired, and Christian is still not in after he's retired for at least 3 years. When the hell is Christian going? It's probably going to be next year. But, and also there was the report going around that Dolph asked for his release, and they were going to give it to him, but now they're not. And then it's like a whole story. I remember reading that actually was not the case, and that Dolph did not ask for it. And I was told it's because he wanted to pursue other projects. I know Dolph's had a stand-up gimmick, a stand-up comedy routine going on for a little while. So I kind of think he might want to focus on that because I kind of feel like he's done it all in pro wrestling. He's nothing left to prove. There would be no reason for him to go anywhere else. If he does go somewhere else, I was thinking about it earlier. I guess AEW really is the best option because of the fact that there are some matches there I want to see him have. Him versus Cody years later would be nice. Him versus Omega would be fantastic. But I don't know if Dolph really wants to do that. I would rather see him do a stand-up comedy routine and see if he has a future in that. But that's just my opinion. AJ Styles versus Ricochet. Really good, but it was slower than I expected, to be fair. It wasn't, you were expecting kind of like a high-flying affair, but you didn't really get that much. You got like in bits and pieces here and there. And that was really it. Ricochet did have a nice attire for the event. He was Nightwing from the DC Comics, for those that don't know. Nightwing is the first Robin from Batman, Dick Grayson, who actually is an acrobat. So it kind of fit the theme of Ricochet very well, which I was very nice. I was like, oh look, that's cool. It's weird to talk about this match because like you would expect this one to possibly steal the show. It was good. And that's really it. But I look at it, this was a match you kind of needed. You had a great opener, and you had a squash match in the second match of the show, where fans were still excited because it's a Hall of Famer going against somebody they don't really like. You needed something to kind of slow the tempo down a little bit, so this had the unfortunate placement on the card for it. But it was still good. The finish was fantastic. So Ricochet went for, I believe it was a Phoenix Splash. That's what it kind of looked at the beginning of. It got reversed into a Styles Clash. That was something you don't usually see. You don't usually see AJ grab somebody out of midair and be the muscle man to to a smaller guy. So I'm curious as to, what is going to happen and what is going to be the future of this U.S. title. I believe Braun Strowman's getting a title shot on Raw next week. And Ricochet was in the main event scuffle after the match this week. So I don't know who's going to get the title shot at Clash of Champions. I believe it's supposed to be Ricochet. But this is the match where they need to let him just go all out. Like, Extreme Rules wasn't bad, and SummerSlam was good. This is the one where you just be like, just go fly around, and here's 15 minutes. Just go crazy. That's what I want to see. And I hope we get that. And Bayley versus Ember Moon. This match was put in a bad spot. Just a bad spot. It was slow, but it was really good. They were doing spots you don't usually see from them. So now I'm very curious as to where do they go next? What could be next? I think it's tough. It's real tough because of the fact that there's so many women on the SmackDown division that deserve a shot. And I do think it's going to be what's his face? It's going to be interesting to see simply because of the fact that SmackDown is so deep with talent in the women's division. Like I said last week, there's Sonya Deville, Mandy Rose, I'm trying to remember them all. Kairi Sane, Asuka. I would like to see Bayley versus Asuka again on the main roster. It's just like, if you look at it, it was this was kind of not really a coming out party for Ember Moon. Ember looked good. She looked really good. And it showed that she can be, that she's ready for the challenge to be champion, but she just needs a little more time, a little more, not development, but a little more seasoning, for lack of a better term. Which I am ready to be a witness of. I think she's going to be a future champion. I can't wait to see her be a future champion. My thing is, I think she just needs time. Which a lot of them need. Like I said, with who Bayley could challenge next, please, I don't want Charlotte. Nobody wants to see Charlotte back in the title picture yet. It's not time. Let us get to Survivor Series. Sasha's probably winning the Raw Women's title. Bayley as SmackDown Women's Champion. We get Sasha versus Bayley. And then Charlotte can take the title if she wants. Just give me Sasha Bayley, please. That's all I want. Shane McMahon, Kevin Owens. I'm tired of Shane McMahon, so you all know this by this point. Thank God it was short. I want Shane to go away. I want him gone forever, please. Fortunately, he's back, and this looks like it's going to continue, which I'm mad about. But whatever. And then we get... And here's my question. Why do babyface wrestlers never have friends? You see all these heels that are all cool and buddy and friends, and where's that for the good guys? They never have friends. Where are their friends? It's a bit annoying, but I'm fine with it. The finish, I think, was actually a nice thing. And it was something you would see Stone Cold do, which is kind of what I feel like this is going to be. They want this to be the Vince McMahon versus Stone Cold Steve Austin of this era. It's another McMahon, and it's a guy who's not your typical pro wrestler. And they both have the stunner. You would probably see Austin give a weapon to the referee. The referee would turn his back, put it back, low blow, stunner, and win. It was a nice old school kind of finish, which I was perfectly fine with. Just end the storyline, please. We're all tired of Shane McMahon. We don't want him anymore. Stop it. He's done. Now that match is over. Charlotte Flair versus Trish Stratus. At 40-something, I don't remember. I want to say it's 42 or 43. Trish can still go. And I'm very happy to see that. I'm also very fine with her losing because it's the fact that if rumors are to be believed, this is her last match. And she went out on her back like you're supposed to in your final match. Keeping tradition alive in wrestling is nice to see to me. It's kind of bittersweet. I grew up during the Trish Stratus era, but I didn't watch during Trish Stratus' time. I believe I started watching, I know Beth Phoenix, Victoria, and Michelle McCool were kind of like the three big names of the women's division at the time. I think Mickie James was out at the time due to a personal reason, maybe. Or I just hadn't seen her yet. No, I hadn't seen her yet because she was on Raw. And I started watching SmackDown. I knew nothing about Raw. I initially thought we didn't get the channel for Raw, so I didn't see Beth Phoenix and Mickie James till like 2010. And it's like I knew Michelle McCool and Victoria. I knew of Beth Phoenix because they would mention her on commentary because she was the women's champion. And at the time, they only had the one women's title. So you could see like SmackDown wrestlers challenging her for the title on pay-per-views. So I'm very curious as to if this is Trish's last match, because we've seen wrestlers say, oh, this is my last match, and come back for like 7 or 8 more. Looking at Ric Flair. But this is also a nice way to kind of show the different side of Charlotte. We've always seen like the pompous side of Charlotte, the one who's like, I know just how damn good I am, blah, 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 and just take it to everybody. We saw aggressive Charlotte. I really like aggressive Charlotte. This would be a very interesting character development for her. And I want to see it more and more. I want to see her get angry and mad. This would be a very nice thing to see her work into her normal character. Where it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of like, I guess for lack of a better term, it's like her hulking out. Where now she's like this whole big mad brute, for lack of a better term. And I think it would be nice to see because, like I said, I don't want her to challenge Bayley yet. But I would like to see her still be aggressive in matches. And also it's another big win for Charlotte. She's a 9-time women's champion, although 2 of those reigns lasted less than a month. One lasted less than 10 minutes recently. And it felt like if I was in charge of booking this match, I would have done one thing different. While Trish is doing her pose on the ropes for like, and everyone's saying thank you, Trish. Have Charlotte come back out and beat her down, and then you have like say Trish starts to like mount a comeback, like the lights go out, even though the Fiend was coming up soon. It wouldn't be the Fiend. The lights come back on, and they're surrounded by women's wrestlers that have been misused. I saw this idea from Cultaholic, so it's not like an original idea. My original idea personally was having just Liv Morgan come out and beat up Charlotte because of the match they had a little over a month ago on SmackDown, and then we see Liv's new character. But I do like the idea of like having like a female stable where they just attack. They'll attack two legends. One is still a current wrestler, and one that just retired. But I do think it would have been interesting to see at least Liv because of the fact I think they really like Liv and they want her to be a big time player. And I would be totally fine with that. I still feel like they broke up the Riot Squad too soon. Even though Ruby had double rotator cuff surgery, I believe. I believe it was double rotator cuff. She had surgery on both of her shoulders for something. If I don't remember the right term for it. So I feel like you could have at least kept Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan together, and there's another tag team, and use Ruby as like a manager role, essentially. But we'll see. I'm very curious as to what the future does hold for Charlotte because, like I said, I don't want her in the title scene soon, but I remember reading they want her to break her dad's record. It's not going to mean as much because it's the women's division, because they don't nearly get as much coverage as the men, which is a shame because they're just as talented. But what I do want to see is her at least, let others shine and show what they can do like they did with Ember Moon. Then we have the WWE Championship match with Randy Orton versus Kofi Kingston. Again, it was a lot of these matches on the show were slow at first, but they did start to pick up. As the match went on, it was getting better. And then there was the double countout spot, which was annoying, but with no... this is like literally what I have in my notes. With no other top heel on SmackDown, I'm fine with it. Now, you look at what Randy Orton did. He hit the mid-air RKO on Kofi. Instead of going straight for the pin, Kofi was able to roll out of the ring. And Kofi was trying to drag it... Orton was trying to bring his body up. Kofi's unconscious body, in quotes. And Kofi's son was like saying that he wanted to fight Randy. That is nice storytelling. I kind of like it. It's kind of the same story again last year with Joe and AJ. But here it's like a little different because Kofi has talked about a lot about his family. Whereas before that feud with Joe started, AJ hadn't really talked about his family that much in WWE. So it's a weird thing. It's like I remember reading too, this feud is going to go until Hell in a Cell. I believe after that, SmackDown moves to Fox, and we get the 20th anniversary show. I believe it's their 20th anniversary show. Or it's celebrating 20 years or whatever. And we see Brock Lesnar on SmackDown. I think Lesnar's going to take the WWE Championship from Kofi, and then that's how they get it to Roman. And that could work. Because technically you look at it, I'm not saying I want the Kofi era to end. I've enjoyed Kofi as champion. And I wouldn't hate Orton taking the title just so that way he could make a tie with Triple H. But if you have to have Kofi drop the title to somebody, it wouldn't be Randy. You want to see Kofi get revenge for what happened 10 years earlier. So the question becomes, what could possibly be in the works? Who could be the next person to take the title from Kofi? Brock Lesnar. Because if you have Brock take it from him, it wouldn't be Survivor Series because we're getting Raw versus SmackDown there. And I don't think we want to see Rollins versus Lesnar again. The first match was really quick from them at WrestleMania. Their second match at SummerSlam was pretty good, as we'll get into here in a bit. And a third match from them right now might not be in the cards, but I'm not going to rule it out. But I say you have Brock take it at TLC. You have the rematch at SummerSlam. No, that's not SummerSlam. Excuse me. You have Brock taking it to TLC. You have the rematch at the Royal Rumble. Then you would have the Elimination Chamber, where you have a number one contenders Elimination Chamber from SmackDown. And you could have Roman, Kofi, Orton, and three other guys. Maybe Bryan's in there. Maybe Owens. And because I want to see it, Buddy Murphy or Shinsuke Nakamura. One of those two for the last spot. And you have Roman win that. You have like a contract signing at the show they do before WrestleMania. And then you have WrestleMania. The WWE Championship's going to be weird going forward because it's still kind of weird to me to see Kofi in the main event scene because of the fact that he's been in the mid card for so long. I'm enjoying it, but it's like still a weird thing to think about for me. But for the current feud right now, I don't absolutely hate the double count out finish. I'm not a fan, but I don't hate it. It could have been a lot worse. Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt, or Finn Balor versus The Fiend or whatever. Yes, the entrance was really cool. I really enjoyed the severed head lantern Bray Wyatt with The Fiend in his entrance. I enjoyed the remix of the song by Code Orange. I really hope they got the okay from the original band to do that. And I am very curious what this new character is going to be. And it was pointed out, he wasn't on Raw or SmackDown. I'm fine with that, simply because of the fact that I want The Fiend to be special. I don't want to see him every single freaking week. There's a reason we don't see Finn Balor's Demon every week, because it's a special thing. This is going to be Bray Wyatt's special thing. And not seeing it every week is going to make us want it more and more. I do think eventually we see Fiend versus Demon. And maybe that's where Finn Balor gets the win back against Bray Wyatt, or maybe that's where the Fiend the Demon takes his first loss to show the Demon's not unbeatable. It's just really damn hard. And there was the point that it was short. There wasn't necessarily a write-off. If Bray had hit Sister Abigail, I believe that's still what he's going to call the finisher, and picked Finn up at 2, and then just shook his head like he did before he snapped Finn's neck. Because that's legit one of the moves. He takes the head from one side. He took the head from one side and legit snapped it so that the head was automatically, super quickly on the other side of his head. Or his face, excuse me. That looks like it's going to be a big move. What I want to see with that is that would have been used. This is just my booking right now. Sister Abigail, Bray lifts Finn up at 2, snaps his neck, 3 count. That's how you write Finn off. You can say a damaged vertebrae, a broken vertebrae, whatever, however you want to spin it. And we don't see Finn Balor, for 2 months. I believe that's what I remember reading. And I am curious what's next for the Fiend. I don't know if we see him at Clash of Champions in a match. It would make sense for him to take AJ Styles because of the fact that Styles is the U.S. champion and a heel. I don't want him to face Seth Rollins simply because of the fact that would mean he would lose, because Seth's going to have a semi-decent reign, I think, as champion. And there's still the fact that we're still learning about the Fiend. So I'm really excited to see what the future is, and I'm really curious to see where we go from here. So let's see what happens. Let's see what develops, and maybe, just maybe, we do see something special happening with the Fiend. I feel like this is a really tough character for WWE to screw up. So we have to wait and see on that, though, because they can screw up a lot of things that we don't think is possible for them to screw up. But now the main event, we had Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar for the Universal title. This is what I've said to people, and it's true. First thing, Brock works really well with smaller guys, with the exception being Roman Reigns. His match with Samoa Joe and his match with Finn Balor, not Finn Balor, his match with Samoa Joe and his match with Braun Strowman were okay. Nothing to write home about. They're just okay. But when you put him against the likes of AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins, even Roman Reigns, because Roman is not too much smaller, but still smaller than him. You put him with guys that are smaller than him. Those four guys make Brock Lesnar look like $1 million, and Brock makes them look like $1 million right back. Also, when Brock is motivated to work with somebody, he shows you why he is a really good professional wrestler. I think he might be the most underrated wrestler in history. Because of the fact he is bashed for being on a part-time schedule, yes, but also because of the fact that he's really good when he wants to be. You give him the right story and the right motivation, he's there. Now, the big question is for me, where does Brock go from here? Like I said, my thinking is he's probably going to go to SmackDown, but I'm not ruling out him staying on Raw. Maybe he somehow gets involved in the Raw versus SmackDown 5-on-5 tag team elimination match. I don't know. But what I'm very curious about with Brock is, like I said, where does he go next? But can't he continue to stay motivated like this? Because ever since he's come back from ever since he beat Goldberg, he's looked a lot better. He's had matches with Roman. He's had matches with Styles. He's had matches with Bryan. He's looked great in all of those. So, can he continue this? And yes, I'm fine Rollins won. Like I said last week, I wouldn't have minded him beating absolutely destroyed because of the stupid things he said on the internet recently. But I'm fine with it. It puts the title back on weekly television. And the only issue is there's no other real big heel on Raw. There is the writing in the wall of I guess I can say it now. My pick to win the King of the Ring is Drew McIntyre. And I feel like the stipulation for the finals is going to be whoever wins gets a world championship match at Hell in a Cell, because I believe that's the next pay-per-view. So whoever wins gets the title match there. So Drew McIntyre wins, he gets the title shot. And that's how you put Drew into the main event scene. You make him become a big name that way. And I, for one, would be very happy with it, because I think Drew McIntyre should be in the main event scene. Hell, maybe next year this time he's Universal Champion. We'll have to wait and see. But that was SummerSlam. Again, like I said, it was good. A lot of the matches were slow at first, picked up. It was maybe second or third best show of the year. I think, to me, number one was WrestleMania. Even though it was 80 bajillion hours long. WrestleMania was a really good show from top to bottom. Money in the Bank was, again, another really good show top to bottom. I still do not mind that Lesnar won the Money in the Bank briefcase. Everybody else looked really good in the match. So everybody came out looking better. Extreme Rules was good. Royal Rumble was good as always. Fastlane was actually pretty good too. I'm not just saying that because I went to that one. I think it was actually really good. So, now that I'm curious about it, I want to see the direction they go for Clash of Champions. I'm optimistic about it because of the fact that they say every title's on the line. There's 9 matches right there, plus the King of the Ring final is 10. So if you're not in a championship program, you're probably not getting on the show. But who does New Day face? Who does the OC face? The King of the Ring final is a question. Who's got Drew Gulak? Who's facing Seth Rollins? What about AJ? Who's facing AJ Styles? Who's facing Shinsuke Nakamura? Shinsuke Nakamura is probably going to be Ali. But yeah, it's very question. There's questions right now about who faces who, and what the stories are going to be. But I'm excited. We've seen 2 good shows. We saw the return of Sasha Banks, so we know who Becky's facing. I'm very semi-excited. I'm not going to say I'm like super excited yet. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'll say right now. But that is going to be it for this week. Again, as always, thank you guys so much for listening. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, you can follow me on Twitter at ChiroSolider. You can follow this podcast at Podcast Armchair. You can follow All Things Combat, which is a website that covers professional wrestling, boxing, and MMA, on Twitter at Things Combat. I write for them. That's why I always plug them. I have 3 Breaking Down Predictings coming out. King of the Ring will be this week. Super J Cup should probably be next week. And Battle of Los Angeles should be the week after that. And also, I am the sports editor over at the Cauldron newspaper at Cleveland State. And if you want to keep up with the Cleveland State news or just see stuff that we write about, you can follow us at CSU Cauldron. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you like what you hear, hit like. If you want to, go ahead and hit subscribe. I will see you guys next week where hopefully something happens. King of the Ring will happen so we can talk about King of the Ring first round. That's all I have to go on for next week right now. Like I said, thank you guys for listening so much, and I'll see you next week.